Hey there, future para, and welcome to lesson number 9, where we're going to be talking and discussing the differences between synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms. Now, in order to become a paraprofessional, you're going to be working with students who haven't yet figured out the difference. And now I'm sure that you have, but in this lesson, we're going to be talking about effective instructional strategies that you're going to want to be on the lookout for your test so you can select the right answer. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, we are going to start by talking about teaching synonyms. And as a refresher, as you can remember, a synonym or synonyms are words that mean the same thing. For example, mad and angry. Now, when teaching synonyms, we have different strategies that we can use to make sure that we teach them effectively. And if you have a look at the 4 bullet points down below, those will guide you for how to teach synonyms. So think about context clues. We've talked about this in the past. Context clues help students understand words that they don't yet know by looking above, below, and around the word that they are unfamiliar with. Now we can have a look at the example presented down below, where in this sentence, we might present a student with this sentence that reads, "The boy was angry when he lost his toy." Notice how the word angry is the word we're focusing on, and that's why it's in bold. And the task of the student will be to replace the bold word with a synonym. So that student would say, "The boy was mad or furious or upset when he lost his toy." And that would help us as the educator know that that student that we're working with demonstrates an understanding of synonyms. Now, there are other ways as well, and we can think about matching games. So if, for example, the teacher cuts out cards and you and I are partners, and you have a deck of, let's say, 10 cards, and I have a deck of the same 10 cards, or cards that are synonyms. So if, for example, you say, "I have mad," then it's my job to look throughout my cards and find angry. And doing that, the students can work together to find synonym pairs. It's a really great way in order for students to learn in an engaging, fun way. Now, we can also teach students how to look up a thesaurus. Just keep in mind that when using a thesaurus, we want it to be age appropriate, because a thesaurus that a 2nd grader uses should be a different book than the one that a 5th grader uses. Okay, and next we have sentence substitution, and this is where we give students a sentence and ask them to swap out a word with a synonym, keeping the sentence's meaning the same. And that's very similar to the activity presented below that we already went over, but this way you can not provide the students with cards or scaffolds and see if they can come up with words on their own using their own knowledge if they are familiar with other synonyms based off the word that would be in the sentence or read auditorially. All right, so now let's go on to antonyms, where we can remember antonyms are opposites, and an example is fast and slow. So again, we have, let's see here, 4 different effective instructional strategies to teach students antonyms. And one of them is to give them, put them in pairs, just like we said with the synonyms, where 2 pairs of students will have a deck of 5 or 10 or 20 cards filled with antonyms this time. And if you and I were partners, then you would say, perhaps, "I have fast," and then I would say, "Great, I have slow." And then we would match those antonym pairs. Think also about word sorts, where students can work individually in pairs or in small groups in order to mix and match words and categorize them. So we might have, we can categorize them by spelling or by meaning, by sound, lots of different ways, and oftentimes the students will end up with an array and a list or of categories or vertical columns of matching synonym pairs. All right, moving on down, we are going to go straight now to teaching homonyms. Now, just as a refresher, remember that homophones are a type of homonym that where 2 or more words share the same pronunciation but differ in meaning, spelling, and sometimes even grammatical function. So if we have a look at the homophone example, sun and sun, we can see S-U-N versus S-O-N, whereas the sun, S-U-N, is the, bright in the sky, very warm, and the sun is the child of a mother or father, a male child of a mother or father. And so let's take a look at some of the characteristics just in case that you are presented with some of the technical knowledge on your exam. So keep in mind that homophones are presented the same way despite their different meanings. Each homophone has its own distinct meaning as they are different words, and homophones are spelled differently as they are completely different words. So also the spelling, and then lastly, homophones can belong to different grammatical categories. All right, now let's go on and take a look at some actual examples where we have these two pairs here, it's, your. Whereas its is the possessive form, that's its. For example, the cat licked its paws. Whereas it''s is the contraction, it is. For example, it is or it's going to be a rainy day today. And then we have your, like your book, your house, and YOU''re, and that is the contraction you are. So you're my best friend. And yeah, I think those are great examples. It's just important to recognize where a lot of students will have difficulty. This isn't, the first time they start to spell or write it out, a lot of the times they're not aware that son and son have different spellings, or it's and its, and your, and the contractions need to be explicitly and directly taught to the students. All right, so remember that homonyms include homophones and homographs, and the difference here is that homophones are words that sound alike but have different spellings and meanings. We can think of flour that you cook with and flowers that we find outside that are beautiful kind of plants like. And then we also have homographs. These are words that are spelled the same but have different meaning. And in this case, we can think of the animal bat that flies, and we can also think of a bat like a baseball bat we play baseball with. So in teaching the homophones or homographs, always be on the lookout when taking your paraprofessional exam for options such as visual aids, because we know that students learn visually, especially with these homophones and homographs, so that they can actually see the spelling, right? Along with pictures. Think about sentence and context clues, which we talked about in the synonyms. You can also use them for antonyms as well as homonyms too. So if we have a look at the example here, we have sentence 1 and sentence 2. I went to the bank to deposit money, and the fisherman sat on the bank of the river. And one of the tasks we could ask a student to do in order to demonstrate their understanding of the difference of meanings between bank 1 and bank 2 is to explain in their own words, the difference. The fisherman isn't going to a bank to deposit some money or withdraw some money. They are going to sit on the bank that is in an inclined way. Now, read the final tips, and when you're finished with this lesson, when you're finished reading this lesson, make sure to go ahead, click the Start Exam button, and take the synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms quiz to double check that you are ready for this section of your para test. You're doing great, and I'll see you in the next lesson.